Hey everybody, welcome to the Pod of Chaos, where the stories wander, the tangents thrive, and nothing ever goes quite as planned, which is exactly the fun of it. So let's dive in. Alrighty, so apologies for any clicking that you might hear in the background. I am on my way to fly spray my horsies, and I'm actually recording on my own today. I'm not on a walk with my daughter. It's really weird, actually. You know, even though it's a podcast and it's audio and people can't actually see you, I still kind of feel like I don't know what to do with my hands or my face, especially now that I'm not pushing a stroller. Anyway, today's episode, I've, been in this space of really ruminating on and thinking about the MMCs, the male main characters, the ones we love, the ones we hate, the ones we love to hate, the ones we hate to love, all of the MMCs. And today we're going to talk about one question in particular, and then we're going to kind of go into archetypes, because the more I expand my reading, experience, repertoire, etc. into different genres, the more I'm like, I'm just thinking about all these male main characters. So the big question of today is, male main characters, is it worse to love the ones in our romantasy books where they're fantasy, they're the shadow daddies, they're broody, they have powers, there are fae wars going on, etc.? Or is it worse to love the male main characters in books that are set in the real world, where they're firefighters, search and rescue, police officers, bodyguards, real people that actually exist in the real world? Because I'm of the opinion that's actually harder, because, in your little romantasy la land brain, or your fantasy land brain, if it's a male main character from the real world, you could theoretically run into him in the real world. We have firefighters, we have search and rescue, we have first responders, we have army, all those things are real. So when these characters are written into the real world and these real positions, it's almost harder to love those ones, because your romantasy brain can then apply to somebody who theoretically could be real. You never know. So we're going to dive into that question. And in order to do that, we're going to kind of look at archetypes, because, as I have said in, I think the first 2 episodes probably, I am, or was, we're going to get into that too, primarily a romantasy girly, okay? And I'm talking ACOTAR, I'm talking the Empyrean, I'm talking even the Belladonna series, Two Twisted Crowns. Those are kind of the ones that have been floating through. Of course, Throne of Glass, obviously. And I have done Crescent City, but it's not my favorite series by SJM. Anyway, so we have our shadow daddies, okay? Everyone loves a shadow daddy. I'm okay with the shadow daddies. I'm more into the broody wall of muscle warriors. Those are kind of the ones that I'm more into. So for SJM work, I'm taught I love Cassian, I love Lorcan, I love Rowan. Those are my top 3 SJM males, if you will. So I kind of started thinking about okay, we've got your counterparts throughout your series, and shadow daddies being some of the kind of comparables through different series. So I was you've got your counterparts, okay? And then I was oh, there's this word that I forgot that I knew called an archetype. And I was I'm going to look into the male main character archetypes, and we're going to see, what we come up with, because I'm also doing it from a writer standpoint. So I'm okay, do I want to write from an archetype perspective? Do I already have characters developed that already fall into an archetype that I just maybe haven't thought of, or I'm not aware of? So I just kind of started looking into archetypes, and I was comparing the ones from romantasy to romantasy books that take place in the real world. The romantasy books that take place in the real world that I'm referring to, that I personally read, I did cowboy romance for ages. This is probably because I'm a horse girl. And I've explored different genres, or not genres, oh my gosh, different disciplines in the horse world, I guess kind of like a genre. And anyway, so I was okay, so I did the cowboy thing. And then I listened to a podcast and it was an episode of the Flights of Fantasy podcast. And I had kind of just been looking for like a change up. I wasn't really ready to dive into another romantasy book or another fantasy book. And I was like, what do I feel like? What do I kind of want to do? And I started thinking, okay, well, I want to read like a love story, obviously, because romance is like, my heart. And I was like, I want to read something that really has like the protective leader, but like kind of tender for her kind of vibe. And I listened to an episode by them, and one of the podcasters, Christina, was talking about an author called Catherine Cowles, who writes romantic suspense. And I was like, let me dabble into this romantic suspense world. It kind of seems to have all the elements that I want without jumping back into a romantasy series. And it turns out she writes kind of like small town romantic suspense. And I was like, amazing. We're getting that like homegrown feel. And much to my surprise and wonderful shock, she writes like animals in. And one of the first books that I read was, oh my goodness. Okay. So 2 books that I read initially were included in Audible. So it was Beautifully Broken Pieces, and then I skipped to Beautifully Broken Spirit. And in Beautifully Broken Spirit, we have a horse girl, Miss Jensen, okay? So I was like, this is amazing. So I kind of binged those, and then I did Shadows of You. Did I do Shadows of You? Hang on. Okay, yes, I consulted the Goodreads. I did Shadows of You. I was dying for Roan and this story, okay? Like, I really loved Tuck, and I loved Jensen because she was a horse girl. But Shadows of You, I was like, oh my God, my heart, this story, the elements to it, the way he is with Aspen, the main character, I was just like, oh, okay, give me more of this series. So then I jumped into Whispers of You, which is actually the first book in that series, because the series themselves are like romantic series where you don't necessarily have to read them in order, like 1 to 5 or 1 to 4. So Shadows of You is number 4, and then I jumped back to Whispers of You, which is actually number 1. And Whispers of You has Holt and Ren, and oh my God, Holt, oh my gosh. Okay, anyway, you can probably hear my heart just like exploding, imploding, I don't know. So binged them, and now I'm on Echoes of You, which is the second one in that series. So now I'm going to go through them in order for that series, and then I've got Tattered Stars and then Fractured Sky, which is like the first and the last book in one of her other series. Anyway, I'm dying. So I was like, okay, I am fully, totally enraptured in this romantic suspense world. And specifically, this is the first author that I've actually tried in it, but I am in love. And I was so happy to see that, like, and then one of the books, The Whispers of You, there's a dog involved, and I'm like, oh my God, the animals. She writes the most wonderful animals into her stories with her MMCs and her FMCs, the female main characters. So then again, I'm thinking back to archetypes. That is my cat. It's my barn cat, but it's my cat. Speaking of animals, 2 seconds, let me say hello to my kitty cat. And we're back. I don't even know if you could hear her meowing, but she was meowing and I gave her special food. Anyway, so I'm thinking to the archetypes, and then I started thinking about like, okay, so in the romantasy world, I am a sucker for Rowan, Lorcan, and Cassian. They are my men. But then there's kind of that aspect of like, you're not actually going to run into Rowan, Lorcan, Cassian, or anybody else. You're not going to get a Dorian. You're not going to get a Xaden. They don't exist in the real world, and it's because they're in the romantasy world, because they have fantasy elements and they're fantasy men. And I know all men written by women are kind of like a brand of fantasy man, but anyway. So it's like, okay, this giant 7-foot Fae warrior or Illyrian warrior, they're not going to come land on my little farm in rural Canada and be like, hey, let me take you to the land that exists far, far away. And to which I would say, okay, but can you carry my 6 horses and my 2 dogs and my barn cat? Because you need to take everybody with you if you're taking me. Anyway, so like, I love them. I love to love them. I love their qualities. I love how they are with their romantic interests. But there is that aspect where you're like, okay, but they're not here. You're not going to just run into them easily and see wings and be like, that wingspan looks like it suits me. We're good to go. That's not going to happen. Maybe it might. I mean, I'm not saying no, but it's not generally going to happen. So then as I'm reading these romantic suspense books where you've got like the aspect of suspense, which again are typically real world occurrences, like there's stalking. Oh my gosh, my dogs are wild. There's like stalking, there's trauma, there's healing, there's issues with family members and abusive exes and crime. Like, all of those are real things that do happen in real life. And then you've got these men who are amazing, and they have real life jobs, and they do real life things that real life men do, but they just embody all those qualities and those characteristics and the way that they act and the way that they are. And oh my gosh. So I'm just like, okay, let me just run away to the mountains and I will find Roan, the fish and wildlife / protective, rescuing, hunky, amazing, wonderful man. Or again, let me run away to the mountains and I'll find Holt, who does, I think he did like the army and like private security. And then he comes home and he's doing search and rescue. And you're like, oh my gosh. And they're not like crazy high octane books, but they do have good suspense and they do have happily ever afters. Thank you very much. I'm not going to read something that does not have a happily ever after. But they're kind of sort of real, because you can be like, okay, like I could go visit that town, or yeah, you could look up the job, or you could, unfortunately, that type of suspense, that type of trauma and crime stuff exists in the real world. So all these little different things exist in the real world, and they're just woven together to tell some of the most amazing stories with like the most fantastical characters. And like the FMCs are so good too. I know I'm droning on and on and on about MMCs right now, but that's because that was like where my question and my brain were. But the FMCs in these books are fantastic, and they're so funny, and the banter is so good. It's just wonderful. There's a reason that I'm binging all the Catherine Cowell's books that I can get on Audible. So, my returning back to the initial question, is it worse? Meaning, is it harder on your heart to love the male main characters from romantasy books? Or is it harder on your heart to love the male main characters from romance books that exist in the real world? Whether they're cowboy romance, romantic suspense, I think like hockey romance is a thing. There's all mafia romance. There's all kinds of romance books that are set like in the real world. So is it harder or worse on your heart to love those guys? Because it's almost easier to like rationalize and like fantasy land that, oh, you never know, I just might not have met my Holt yet. You know what I mean? So this brings us on to, oopsies, I'm tapping buttons. This brings us on to this whole archetype question, because like I said, I am in the process of writing a romantasy book, but now that I'm totally enveloped in this romantic suspense world, I'm like, that might be kind of fun to dabble into. So I started like looking into archetypes for interest, for research, for curiosity, all the things. So I was comparing like romantasy ones to like real world ones, if you will, specifically romantic suspense probably. And totally upfront, I just asked ChatGPT. I was like, tell me archetypes, because your girl is mom to a newborn and she doesn't remember things. So we've got like the protector warrior versus the fae immortal warrior. We've got the leader king versus the reluctant prince or king. We've got like the chosen one and the guardian protector. All archetypes, and these can be combined. And then we've got the grumpy protector, aka Grumpy Sunshine. We've got a grumpy immortal, Grumpy Sunshine, charming rogue, silver-tongued rogue, tragic hero, or the cursed or marked lover. And then we have the darker anti-hero vibes, okay, which is like our morally gray baby, our morally gray, anybody, shadow daddy, whoever. We've got the anti-hero and the villain lover, the Byronic hero, which means brooding, intelligent, rebellious, dangerously attractive, and self-destructive. So we have them. We have the villain protagonist and the monster hero, which has your shapeshifters, cursed beast, etc., etc. And then we have our adventurer guys, which are like our explorer wanderers or like outlaws. We've got rebels, we've got like dragon riders and beast tamers, survivors, etc. And then we have your everyday man, everyday archetype guys. So these everyday guys are your boy next door versus your loyal companion, your underdogs, your gentle giants, your comic relief, or possibly your hidden heirs. So these are kind of like the archetypes that ChatGPT spat out, if you will. I do have an episode where I want to talk about tropes, so I'm sure some of these guys will pop back up. But you can kind of like pair the archetypes, I guess, together, or they give you like a baseline, I guess, if you're writing, or as you're reading, you might end up figuring out that like you really like this particular archetype. So yeah, so it's just kind of a thought, just throwing some appreciation out there for the MMCs that we read in romantasy, in real world books, having a little brain overload sesh on them. I would love to hear what kind of guys you like to read, what kind of men, both romantasy men and real world book men. Have you guys read the Catherine Cowles books that I'm talking about? Are you a Roan girly? Are you a Holt girly? Are you a Tuck girly? Are you a girly for somebody that I haven't read yet? I am so curious to know who you fall for, why you fall for them, who you go back to, who you like to read, all those awesome things. We can thank authors everywhere for giving us these men. And please answer the question, is it harder for you to love on a romantasy male main character, or is it harder on your heart to love on a real world set male main character? Make sure you tell me who I've missed that you love, who I should read that you love, any series, books, authors in any genre that you should feel I should be pointed onto. I cannot wait to hear all of your feedback. Maybe we'll go over them if I get enough messages. And thank you so much for listening. I will see you on the next Pod of Chaos episode.